Hi there, it's Mal here. I'm afraid that this week's episode features my lisp being back, something to do with the microphone that we will be changing from next week. Apologies, hope it doesn't interfere too much with your enjoyment of the show, and thanks again for listening.
Hi everybody and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, Mal McCallion, and my good friend and co-host Matt Goddard. Matt, how are you today?
Yeah, happy Friday, Mal. It is Friday, isn't it? I'm really good. How are you?
I hope it is. Yes, I hope it's Friday, because otherwise I'm supposed to be in some meeting somewhere around the country. But yes, I'm sitting still today and very excited by, all the news we've got to trundle through today. So without further ado, let's get stuck into our property news. All right, this week, again, the big story is all about Rightmove and its current runs and attempts to engage with AI without shattering its share price any further. The kind of big headline from yesterday in the Negotiator was that Rightmove is set to drop out of the FTSE 100 as of next Tuesday. If it remains at the current level of its market capitalization, which is 3.15 billion, then it will drop into the FTSE 250, which is pretty significant for a business of its size and stature. It's basically been hammered by a lot of AI speculation, and in order to try and battle that, this week it announced that it had submitted to ChatGPT, owner OpenAI, the ability to create an app that will pop up inside ChatGPT. So there's a lot to kind of get our teeth into. Matt, what are you making of this story as it breaks yesterday?
Well, it was interesting to see that it came up in the Standard, I think, the night before the Negotiator broke it as well. And it was interesting to see that it's both Rightmove and EasyJet that obviously you've robbed their corporate orange from, looking like they're going to drop out the FTSE 100.
As I've explained before, this is Sainsbury's orange, not EasyJet.
But I think there's the similarity and the sort of linearity with what's going on with realestate.com.au is interesting as well. 6 months ago, both of them, their share prices were double what they are today. They were in talks prior to that of an acquisition at, what was it, 6.2 billion?
4, yeah, I think. 6.4 was when they raised it to, yeah.
And what's Rightmove now? 3.1 billion. So it's that sheer drop. And then in the same week, both of them announcing a ChatGPT app has been submitted, and further hits to the share price. So it's not just a Rightmove thing going on here, right? It's like we're seeing across other sectors. There's some definite volatility around it.
Yeah, and listen, investors do not run to those kind of hills so fast, unless there's something seriously unless they see something very serious about the kind of future prospects of the business. Basically, every business is kind of valued on its multiples. So how do investors see the future ability of this business to continue to charge, in this case, agents, and increase their prices and the strength of all of that and so on? So the fact that they are running away from these businesses, and you're absolutely right, it's not just kind of geographically that it spreads over to Australia and indeed to the States with CoStar and Zillow, and in Germany with Scout24, but it's also sectors. So Auto Trader has been hammered as well, so all of these kind of marketplaces are being viewed with increasing skepticism by investors as to whether they can certainly continue to leverage what they've been able to leverage as we enter the age of AI. Particularly the concern that they have is around the data is kind of available now, right? Agentic AI, you can go onto ChatGPT if you're paying your 20 quid. In the plus button underneath the prompt, you can click on that and change and choose agent mode. And then you can just do a search and you can find properties. And it will go and crawl agents' websites. It doesn't need to go onto the individual onto Rightmove or whatever. And so that's why again a lot of people are looking at this and thinking that that what has sustained them for the last 25 years is not going to sustain them for the next 2 or 3, and that's why they've been so badly hammered from the share price perspective. But yeah, look, they're attempting some kind of fight backs with different sort of AI initiatives. And the week before last, it was that they were doing some conversational search trial. This week it's been ChatGPT app that they've announced. When that is given the okay by OpenAI, I'm sure there'll be another headline. But it doesn't really distract from the fact that dropping out of the FTSE 100 is a significant blow. And as you say, to a board of a business that 18 months ago was on the block for 6.4 billion, and it was turned down because the board was confident that they could make the business even more valuable. So lots going on over there.
I think it's an interesting, there's an interesting follow on from this though. Because you said about the negativity there around, obviously the share price, and this ChatGPT app for both realestate.com.au and Rightmove are seen as hopefully positive and to shine some lights on it. And there's obviously a lot of scrambling behind the scenes to try and get these things in order. But absolutely, and it'll be interesting to hear if you've had feedback around Rightmove, because obviously you're treading the boards and getting around the country speaking to agents. In Australia, there's a lot of negativity come out of agencies because to build a ChatGPT app, you've got to put your data into ChatGPT, and actually the realestate.com.au, the data they're passing through, a bit like we saw with Zillow when they launched their ChatGPT app, there was a big backlash because it's like we're not giving you our data to push into ChatGPT. We're giving you our data to put onto the listings portal. So it becomes a case of agents are saying, well, this is our data and you're doing it. So it goes to that whole first party data point where people are going to get dragged towards realestate.com.au. They haven't given the authority and the go ahead for that data to be used in that way. So there's a lot of negativity coming out of Australia on that front. Have you heard or seen anything from the UK in relation to that?
No, not yet. But I think that's probably because we haven't actually been able to see the Rightmove app in play. So I think that, because all they've done is actually just submitted it, just like you do to the App Store in Apple for the iPhone, you submit it and Apple gives it the okay, 10 days later or whatever. So I'm sure once that does go up, then I think you're absolutely right. This will be an issue. And the issue will be, we are paying to create the content as an agent, paying to create the content, then we're giving it to Rightmove for free. And then they are hijacking that traffic from the large language models onto their app and then charging us for the leads that come through for the data. So yeah, I think it's going to be just as much of a live issue over here as it has been over there.
The one thing it does solve, though, this is sort of taking the opposite side of the stance, is that non-deterministic side of if you're searching in a large language model, so you say your normal 3 beds by the coast near ballroom dancing, you're not going to get necessarily consistent results because of the very nature of the large language models and how they return those results. Whereas if you're doing a connector and getting Rightmove's results or Zillow or realestate.com.au, then you would get the same results through because you are basically just piping straight through from Rightmove, right?
I think that's true to an extent, but then the problem then becomes that actually those results that you are seeing are Rightmove's premium results. So they're the featured properties. So that it's actually it's not a genuine search. It's actually a kind of corrupted search. As a user, I am being force-fed the richest agents' properties rather than the ones that I want to see. So it does, to an extent, solve a challenge, but it brings a whole new world of actually, what am I looking for? Am I looking for the perfect properties for me, or am I looking for the ones that Rightmove want to throw down my throat because that's what they're getting paid the most for?
And do you think we just get used to that non-deterministic, the irregularity of results, and in terms of, or do you think there's businesses out there that are going to be more open than Rightmove that don't necessarily need the sponsored links? Yeah, and I'm not asking for you, my porter. I'm really interested.
Yeah, no, so genuinely, yes, and again, this hasn't been set up as an advert for my portal, but the reason why we're doing my portal is it's free to list for agents. The research results are pure because nobody's paying us any money for it. And, we've got a really strong business model that I can walk through if anybody really wants to know about it. But yes, in terms of what a consumer wants to see, they want to see 100% of properties and they want to see them in a format that is perfect for them, not for the portal. And, agents want that as well, right? They just want their properties to be shown, not because they've got to outbid each other to get top spot, but actually, in a format that is fair and reasonable and accurate and all those sorts of things. So yeah, that's exactly the play the reason why we're here. But yes, again, without making this into a big long advert about that, these are the problems that we're solving, because it is just such a we're in this interesting intermediate phase where basically the old models are starting to wither and the new models are coming through. And I think it's going to be a problem that will be solved relatively quickly, and that's what we're looking at.
No, I am, just before you do move on, just flipping back from devil's advocate position, there are things that agents can do, and especially around that first party data, making sure they're top of the pile. And I know some very good speakers talk about this at various conferences, but it's making sure that you are enriching your listings, that you've got all of the data in there. If you can get it out before you put it on the portals, do. If you can put it out there on social media, the large language models look at Google, they look at Meta to rank those reviews on the websites, Google Maps, all those things really can help you establish yourself. And actually, if I'm really doing a very focused search, like for example, Cleethorpes, 3 beds, walking distance to the swimming baths, then there aren't going to be that many rules coming up. So that non-deterministic bit actually comes a little less of a focus once you've got all the fact that you've got the majority of those listings in your patch already.
So make sure that you put your properties up on your own website first. I think that's a really important way of organizing the authority piece with the large language models. One of the things we've discovered as well is actually if you, rather than keywords, so keywords were great for search engine optimization, Google and all that sort of stuff. It's kind of key sentences or key phrases now are the things. So the large language models, yes, they are amazing, but they also have relatively limited compute at the moment. They're still building out the data centers and all that sort of stuff. It's not that they're lazy, but they do try and reach for kind of really easy answers. So if you say, who is the best estate agent in Cleethorpes, then it will look for a sentence that says, we're the best estate agent in Cleethorpes, or we're award winning or whatever. So on your websites out there, estate agents, in fact, any business, what people are going to be looking for, make sure that sentence is within your website, particularly on the page of your branch. So that it says, we're the best estate agent in Kendal, on the Kendal page. It's got testimonials on it. It's got your reviews, as you said, all that sort of stuff. Baking that into your site is going to be really, really important going forward. Anyway, slight digression from the property news, but hopefully helpful. Also in the world of portals, we have a couple of stories from competitors of Rightmove. So Zoopla has acquired a new homes portal. This is the news flash from Property Industry Iowa. Slightly zigging in terms of that Zoopla acquires rival property portal. And it was obviously clickbait in terms of, oh my God, who's this? So I'm not going to lie, I was surprised by this story because I did not expect Zoopla to be acquiring anything right now. They are perhaps the quietest when it comes to what they're doing specifically around AI right now. The consistent, persistent rumors that they are up for sale and so on. So, are they going to be investing in this actual new technology if they're going to be taken over and somebody else is going to pay for it? So it's really interesting to see. But there's portal, and again, no huge disrespect to Zoopla, I don't think they necessarily were the ones that wrote the headlines. But yeah, I've been involved in portals for 25 odd years. I'd never heard of this portal that they've acquired. It's called New Homes. Is it called New Homes for Sale or something?
Yeah, .co.uk.
.co.uk. So yeah, listen, I have no clue, obviously, what the financials are or anything like that. But yeah, having been very, very intrigued, I was then looking at it going, okay.
Especially given, as you already touched on, that they've openly been going through a sale process, right? And we've already covered before the splitting up of the main business into 3 parts, and Alto's been doing its thing quite successfully, especially in terms of news stories. But it's a bizarre one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very strange. But yes, so they have managed to get a nice headline from last week. For different reasons, CoStar, owners of On the Market, have been laying staff off. Again, your listeners will know that there is a kind of boardroom battle between some activist investors over in the States who want CoStar to essentially divest themselves of Homes.com and On the Market and Domain, because they're spending so many billions on trying to chase down the leaders in 3 distinct geographies, one of which would be hard enough, but 3 is like crazy. But so what happened is CoStar has kind of said, all right, well, we're actually going to bring profitability forward. So by 2 years, so 2028 rather than 2030 for this particular section of our business, we're going to start laying some people off, and they've started that process already. Obviously, adopt more AI. They launched Homes AI 2 weeks ago. Interestingly, I read last week about some of the finer detail of that Homes AI launch, because I think you and I was kind of spitballing about whether this means that, because On the Market was not mentioned in the press release as getting this AI. So we were thinking, well, maybe that's because they're going to change it to homes.com/UK this year. Actually, they've come out and said that they're going to do Domain, so the Australian number 2 portal, in early 2027. So they'll roll out to the States this year, Domain early 2027, and then On the Market after that, so late 2027. So not quite sure why that leaves On the Market for the next year and a half, 2 years. But yes, it's interesting that yes, they have decided that they are going to try and achieve profitability, try and fend off their activist investors by basically sacking people, and by rolling this out very, very slowly indeed. Right, next up, we have got a story about estate agent salaries. So there's a new report out that shows that people in estate agency are being paid 8% more, according to an analysis of ONS, Office for National Statistics, by the Daily Telegraph. So it's about 27 grand. Is that what you started on, Matt, back in the day?
A lot less than that, a lot less. But I think you were doing it for your milk round, weren't you?
I wish. I think one of the things I come across as I'm touring the country and talking to loads and loads of agents is the pay that they now have to pay relatively junior members of staff is really difficult for a lot of them, and actually it has stopped them from both expanding internally and also geographically. One of the many costs that have been assailing individual agents, particularly independent agents, over the last few years. And so, whilst it's on the face of it kind of good news for individuals, I don't know that it necessarily has added to the health of the industry overall. But it's a tricky one.
It's obviously been a lot of changes as well that goes alongside that, hasn't there, in terms of obviously inflation, but also the rise in the national living wage and minimum wage. But I always thought it was not easier, but quite direct in terms of if you want to earn more, then do more deals. But that's maybe not so easy at the moment with the for estate agents out there to be doing.
Yeah, exactly that. But yes, obviously, as AI kind of grows, and you and I we'll talk a little bit more about the tech side and basically us playing around with different things. That technology is moving very, very fast, and perhaps there will come relatively soon a sort of an age where actually agents can expand into the areas they want to expand without necessarily increasing headcount. So that's going to be something obviously that we will cover as it comes over the hill in the months to come. Final story in our property news, we are going over to Australia and talk about Domain, who we just mentioned, CoStar's Australian property portal. They have been offloading stuff in a very on the market tech-led style, haven't they?
They have, yeah. So for background, Domain were very similar to, I guess, more like Zoopla. It was my analogy back in the day, where they acquired a lot of technology. There was a product called Campaign Track, which was a full marketing suite, covered social media, email marketing, various other things that was used pretty much predominantly across the entire industry. Another product was called Engage, very similar to like a Akaboom presentation type product. And these tools are widely used as part of, not because they're part of Domain, but just across the industry there. So I don't think it'll be like Techlet necessarily, where it just gets killed. And Your Keys actually was done by Zoopla recently, wasn't it? Or else
right.
That got written off. I think it'll be more a case of these will be sold off. But obviously it's interesting to watch how that plays out, and obviously CoStar continuing their approach that they did with On the Market, which is we are portal focused, and any ancillary or distractions need to be gone.
Yeah, 100%. So that was the thing that they did in Plymouth this week. Still, mourning the loss of Techlet, and the fact they were just killed. Literally, they just kind of transitioned to it, and then suddenly it was gone, and then they've had to rethink again. Yes, it does seem. On the one hand, you could argue that this is CoStar being laser focused on one thing and one thing only, and I get that. But yes, on the other hand, it does seem to be almost a dogma that regardless of how good these businesses are or how helpful they are to agents, we're just going to get shot of them, jettison them, and everybody's just got to try and kind of get around that. All right, that is our property news for this week. Let us look into our AI and tech news. All right, it's a lot that's been going on again. So one of the most difficult things for us on this podcast is actually try to organize stories into some coherent kind of narrative. So we're going to start this week with a collection of ChatGPT and OpenAI kind of stories. So we've been waiting for ChatGPT 5.3 to come out, and it seems like they're ready to pull the trigger at any moment, but it still hasn't. And in the meantime, there's been some, I said that they've organised some deals with consulting giants, so EY and various others, and they are also releasing a smart speaker. We've heard a lot about the kind of the hardware that's coming out of this organisation. I think the kind of the overall in the roundabout OpenAI, it does feel a little bit like they are under increasing pressure from the likes of Google particularly, but also Elon Musk moved to acquire SpaceX, to acquire XAI and X.com, because this gives them enormous money. So SpaceX has got absolutely tons of cash from the US government. Google has got tons of cash from its ads. Facebook, Meta has got tons of money from its ads. OpenAI is a little bit out there, floating free, because it has to get investment every single time. And there's stories again this week of another, I think, 30 billion of investment raised by Sam Altman again. So yeah, it does seem like there's kind of just a lot of things being thrown out there, right, from Sam Altman and OpenAI.
This comes back to their whole red alert from was it October, when they sort of suddenly realised that they were not just being caught but falling behind.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And in this week, and it's one of the awkward stories of the week, but where Sam Altman and Modi refused to hold hands. And this is the two CEOs of Anthropic and OpenAI, an AI conference in India, an international AI conference where 12 people on stage all sort of joined in a circle and held hands, and the two of them sort of refused to hold hands. But sort of interesting because Amadei and Anthropic is, not number 3 probably in the large language foundational models. Their revenues due to catch OpenAI's, and they're sort of pushing them close, and that's in no small part due to Claude Code's coming out a year ago. And
happy birthday, Claude Code.
Yeah, exactly. Happy birthday, Claude Code. And obviously the very serious move over where people are now using that, especially around their day-to-day tasks quite heavily.
Yeah, the co-work, yeah.
And so to see that coming through, it just adds to the mix, doesn't it? And we said a few weeks ago, Sam Altman and OpenAI's response to some of those Super Bowl ads was quite interesting for the number one player, but actually it just shows the mindset that they're in at the moment.
Yeah, they're so touchy, it seems, and that can't be a good place to be for CEO. But yeah, the refusal to hold hands was a very public kind of playground sort of attitude where, these two enormous billionaires running, zillion-dollar companies, just can't actually touch each other's hands. It's like, really, come on, guys. And so lots of stuff going on around OpenAI, and to do as well, we just kind of touch on the rise of the anti-AI movement as well. Now, again, anybody who opens a paper or anybody who actually chats to people who are looking for work, anything like that, knows that there is a chunk of the population that is very strongly against AI, or at least the AI that they imagine it to be, whether that is the coming Terminator kind of future, or all of the sort of negative stories that people are reading. So yeah, Matt, there's stories out here about people love the .com boom, the AI boom, not so much. It's a real thing, right?
It is, and I thought it was interesting about the Time cover. It was back end of last year we got Person of the Year, and it was actually 4 or 5 people, wasn't it? All the AI pioneers. A little bit of a cop out not choosing one of them, but you had that was their narrative. And actually, this one, there is a bit of clickbait around sort of the negativity of it, but actually, it's people who all come out with sort of quite reasoned and measured arguments about why we need to be careful. So it's not just we're against it, it's skepticism around why we need to think through some of the areas that we're looking for and how these things work. And I think it sort of veers away from the negativity slightly, but there's a big story going on in the States at the moment where Anthropic are going up against the Department of War, I think they call it these days, where basically the whole surge into Venezuela and removing the president there, apparently Anthropic's Claude was used in terms of that military exercise.
Yeah.
And it goes against Anthropic's terms. And so there's a big question mark over, well, can American basically say we're going to use you for this and you just have to suck it up, versus Anthropic taking their stance. So that's the sort of thing that this Times article was going through. It's not just tin hats and 5G is giving me COVID. It's much more reasoned than that.
Yeah, there's another interesting piece of research, but I think it's called Citrini research, and they kind of dropped a day or two ago that kind of blew up on socials, that basically was imagining the future in 2028, I think it was, and basically kind of what's happened to it, and it said it is a vision of it. So there were 3 scenarios that actually put out, and only the negative one really kind of got any huge attention. But yes, it was basically just like how everything's gone wrong, the stock market's halved, basically nobody's got jobs and blah blah. So I think it's good to have these thought experiments. I think it is obviously a concern that people will then just jump on the most negative scenario and then just kind of do that as being the thing that everyone's predicting is going to happen. But yeah, look, again, I think we've always got to be talking about this sort of stuff. We've always got to bear in mind that there is no determined we have to be responsible with AI. We've got to look at it in the round. I constantly go back and look at previous big technological changes, and people were, I remember I read something about bicycles. People were worried that women on bicycles was not a good thing, because then they would be able to travel further than they can travel right now. It's literally everything has potential downside to the current culture. So and as a parent of 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, I worry about how are they going to find jobs and all that sort of stuff. So we'll move on in a sec to some of the more detailed sort of tech stuff about how you can build things. But I do think, we've all got to be experimenting right now. You've got to kind of go and play. If you're not paying for ChatGPT, go and pay for ChatGPT, 20 quid a month. The difference in what you get for free versus what you get paid just by paying that 20 quid is phenomenal. So anybody that's kind of written off ChatGPT or AI and says, well, I've tried it and it hallucinates, it's because you're not using one of the very cost-effective models. So go do all of that, have a play around. But yeah, look, we will talk to you. As you know, we're fans of AI. We think this is something that's going to, I should speak to you, Matt. I'm a fan of AI. I think it's really good. There's so much opportunity for those that really get involved with it. And I hope that the listeners out there are of that mind as well. But yeah, we also need to just, always pay attention to some of the negative stuff as well, right?
We need to temper it and also make sure that we're discussing those points. And I think there's another one, again, Sam Altman in the news this week, where again, people complaining, and one of the people speaking in this Times article is about data centers and the electricity it uses and the noise and the pollution. And we've talked in the past weeks about the idea, and I think it will become a reality, of SpaceX creating data centers in space because of the cooling, etc. But Sam Altman came back and said, in response to people saying it takes how much energy and electricity and such like pollution is generated from these data centers during the training of AI. And Sam Altman came back and said it takes 20 years of life and all the food you eat during that time to make a human smart. Like, you're not considering the similar challenges. And it's like, that's the sort of clickbait that feeds into that, some of the negativity. So we need to be aware of those.
Yeah, I do think it is interesting, just not to that specific point. So yes, clearly, as humans, in order to get to being smart, we have to, or we do create a lot of pollution, and we have to, go through a lot of food and all that sort of stuff. So then often we do just focus on the cost of AI without actually thinking about what it's replacing. And I think the really interesting one is always autonomous cars, right? So now Waymos have less crashes percent per mile than humans do, but still we focus on the crashes that Waymo has, because it's still just this kind of like weird, there's no humans inside the car and it's crashing. But yeah, so I think for a long time now we will expect much higher from the machines than we do from ourselves, and that's always interesting and very typically human, I think, as well, isn't it? All right, that is so that's about the rise of the anti-AI movement. Couple of bits on Elon Musk. We spoke about his XAI just then. He has reached a deal with the Pentagon to use GROK in classified systems. So all of the hard work that Elon Musk put in with his Doge about a year ago is paying off, because now he's got some nice chunky government contracts about to use his large language model GROK inside the Pentagon. And there was a story that I found quite amusing in TechCrunch. So basically, they've been checking out what's the training, how are all these different models trained, and they discovered that GROK has had a very specific training on one of the games that it is known is one of Elon Musk's favorite video games, which is called Baldur's Gate, which is won awards last year. It's like supposed to be amazing, but actually this GROK has been trained to, within his life, to know absolutely everything about this particular game, which again kind of speaks to almost the capriciousness of this particular individual, and slightly worryingly how he is turning his XAI into basically a knowledge base almost exclusively for him and people who think like him. But yeah, it's very, very interesting.
Does that mean when it comes to the benchmarking, we look at something like AI Arena, and you've got benchmarking around sort of overall, obviously expert, hard prompts, coding, maths, creative writing, instruction following, and longer queries? Do we need to add in like another one for Baldur's Gate as well?
Baldur's Gate.
Make sure GROK gets the top on it.
Absolutely. But interestingly, I think it was probably about 6 to 8 months ago, they started doing this benchmarking with Pokemon. So actually, basically, for the AI agent to try and play Pokemon through one of the early Pokemon games and see how far it got, and as agentic AI is getting better and better and better, it is becoming increasingly good at Pokemon. So there is a benchmark out there that actually compares how these AI agents are any good at playing Pokemon. So yes, we'll try and find out who the best one is. I think it's Claude Code at the moment. But anyway. So in our AI and tech news this week, we wanted to cover, so again, it's Claude Code's birthday. Matt, this is one of your favourite things, right?
Moment, definitely. Not just the birthday, but in terms of between Claude Code and Codex 5.3, being able to vibe coding was deemed a year ago as well, off the back of Claude Code coming along as a wrapper around Claude, but specifically for coding tasks. And it's basically agentic coding. And the fact that it's a year old, but also the fact that we're seeing Anthropic surge through and become the dominant player it is, and genuinely, like, the revenue looks like it's going to pass OpenAI because of the shift towards it. And it's interesting, there was some statistics about the volume of people using OpenAI now, and actually the uptake in Anthropic, it's not been a loss for OpenAI and ChatGPT. People have started using both, and I certainly do, for almost like pair programming. You run things through Claude Code and then you shift over. But I think this week has been a real interesting one around what I'll call the open clarification of the sector, I guess, really, because we had OpenClaw come out, and we've talked about that over the last couple of weeks, and you've got a little laptop next to you being geared up for that, haven't you? But
I have my burner laptop.
Exactly. And so everyone else is now sort of filling the gaps where OpenClaw's gone into it, but filling it from more of a grown-up point of view. So if you're not playing fast and loose with your security and where your data's going, and obviously that's going to change as OpenAI takes hold of that. But you've got this week Perplexity launched Perplexity Computer, which is basically their version of OpenClaw, and Perplexity, I think you were using previously Perplexity Comet, weren't you? I don't know if that's still one of them.
Actually, for a nanosecond, yeah. Then I moved very quickly, but then OpenAI released Atlas, so I've been using that as my browser pretty much. And yeah, just very quickly on the kind of OpenClaw. So OpenClaw is an agentic AI that can parallelize, so to have loads of different agentic AIs working together at the same time in tandem and go and do amazing things. You can link it up to anything you like. You can link it up to, your bank. You can link it up to your calendar, and basically you can set it off to go and do tasks. So there is a lot of security concerns, but actually it's actually quite amazing. So yeah, I'm setting up, and I know that you've been working on this as well, Matt, just to see if I can get it to do some stuff in a sealed environment that isn't going to basically wipe my entire hard drive. But I've also been playing around with KimiClaw, actually, which is so Kimi K2 with one of the Chinese models, one of the open source models. Yeah, so I started with that because it is in a sealed environment, and you kind of play around with it first before I dived into OpenClaw. And yeah, KimiClaw is also very, very, very good, and really kind of illustrative of what you can actually end up doing with these things. But yeah, there's so much that's coming up, isn't there, Matt?
And I think what's interesting, just to finish off on OpenClaw as well, is it's the engagement. Initially, it's that it interacts with you via Telegram, but you can hook it up to WhatsApp. If it's sort of prompting you to tell you what you've got today, or you've asked it some questions, the interaction is very much mobile based. And one of the challenges with Claude Code specifically is that you needed to run it on your local machine, and if you're out and about, you couldn't be doing anything until you got back. So now they've launched a mobile version of Claude Code, which I put my teeth in, and which basically is called remote controls. One of the things, I was at a meeting on Tuesday, I had my travel laptop with me, you called it your burner laptop, and I was setting it up because I didn't have Claude Code available on that machine. But actually what I can now do is I can start before I catch the bus into town, set off a number of agents working on things, and then interact with them on remote control on my mobile. So like reviewing what they've done, checking the updates and approving things so that they can be actively working. So it's a little bit like when your team messages you on Teams or Slack and says, I've got this ready to go, can you just review it? These remote versions is what OpenClaw was really successful with. The other thing that a gap between Claude Code, Codex 5.3 and OpenClaw is the fact that to do the scheduled tasks, kicking off at 5 p.m. on a Thursday, chase Mal up about the podcast script and pull together my AI notes for the week. You can have those all set to go, and people are now plugging those gaps. It's a little bit like a throwback to when Manus was blazing a trail with features getting added, and then OpenAI was adding them maybe 3-4 months later. It's something similar, but obviously the rate of change is even faster.
Absolutely right. Yeah, no, it's a phenomenal piece of kit, and yeah, it's well worth having a little look at if you've got the appropriate security in place. Right, mindful of time, so we are going to skip on past our weird AI of the week. We'll cover that next week instead. And we're going to go straight to tool of the week.
Me again.
I am looking at your creation of using our tool of the week, and it's very interesting. Would you like to talk our listeners through it and viewers?
So Nano Banana 2 dropped yesterday. Snuck out. I don't think it's actually hit anything else at the moment. I'm not quite sure how I managed to get this one into the show notes, but obviously Nano Banana arrived last year, made a massive splash. It was going to be called something really mundane, wasn't it? Flash 3.1 image.
Yeah.
And Nano Banana was its covert stealth testing name within the various LLM arenas. And when they changed from Nano Banana to Gemini 3.1 Flash image, there was a backlash, and Nano Banana came back and stuck. So
Stuck, yeah.
The big step that Nano Banana introduced was not just generating new images, but being able to upload a multitude of images, prompt for the changes you want to make, very much like a Photoshop style edit, and they would get pulled together. And obviously we had Nano Banana 1.5, and now Nano Banana 2's dropped. The results are phenomenal in terms of the text side of things. I tried to edit an image that had already been created, which wasn't of a celebrity, and got kickback. To say it couldn't be done because it's a celebrity. So the guardrails are already in place, which obviously we talked a couple of weeks ago that wasn't the case with Sea Dance. But no, the image quality, it's almost photorealistic in terms of what created. And what Mal's referring to is I took an image of a relative who'd been kicking back and disparaging of cauliflower wings and created an album cover, not my idea, of that said person in a country music style, The Joy of Cauliflower Wings album title. And it's photorealistic in terms of the face and the picture. It's
really good.
And obviously you can utilize this for work purposes as well.
So you're right, yeah, go play. And so yeah, Nano Banana off Google Gemini is really good. I think we've spoken before about how it's the best image model. They've just made it even better. So well worth a look. All right, Matt, that is all we have time for this week. Thank you for being there, as ever. You got a busy weekend on?
I'm doing absolutely nothing. Oh, actually, that's not true. I'm obviously going to hack away at Claude Code and carry on building things we were talking about before the show. But yeah, that's because I'm a geek.
That's fun. That's fun for you. Yeah, well, listen, enjoy that very much. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. We'll be back next week with even more property and AI news. Until then, have good weekends and weeks, and we will talk to you next Friday. Bye.
Take care, everyone.